Hello everyone, this is DD1 once again on Jimmy Master Animatronics, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Jimmy animated 2015 Interactive Skull Candy Bowl, or Chattering Skull Candy Dish, whatever you want to call it. Now this item was sold at Target in 2015. However, what you're looking at right now is one of the very first ones because this is a prototype of the item and it was used as a sample. So I got this from this guy that lives near the headquarters of Target, and he knows some people there, so every year he gets some things in. And last year he happened to get this candy bowl in. Why he got it just now and it's from 2015, I don't know. But anyways, I've had this for a couple of months, and it has the same phrases and whatnot as the produced one. However, there are some pretty major differences with it physically, which I will show you. And I'll use a light here so you can see every little bit of difference in details. So as you can see, the eyes for both skulls are drawn on, like with almost what it looks like with a marker. And then, so this skull had been used before this item. So what they did is they just cut out a hole in the eye sockets and they attached the eyes in there. So that's how it looks rough. The rest of it's basically a produced skull, for the most part, but it's hand painted. However, this skull, the smaller one, was never used up until this. So not only are the eyes hand painted, but if you look, it's extremely detailed and like molded together and whatnot. So that's really cool how they did that. So, because this is one of the original prototypes of the item. So as you can see, it's got a lot of detail. And we also have a vendor label from Target here. So there's all the information. It says Gemmy Talking Skulls Candy Bowl Halloween 2015, sent March 23rd, 2015. So that's around the time this actual item was made. Vendor comments are updated color, and by that I would assume they mean the eyes, since the eyes are not, the pupils are not this dilated on the produced one. I sort of like this though. The eyes on the produced big skull make the big skull kind of look dumb. Well, even though he sounds sort of dumb. But regardless, so here's these two skulls, and there are many items that came out through Sunstar, as you can see over there, sorry it's blurry, that have the same skull. And so all of that came from this item. And it does work with the try me button, and this item weighs much more than the produced one. This weighs almost like a pound more, I'd say, because it's all made of the prototype material that various life-size prototypes are made of, such as Flicky Francis and the Dancing Monster, and a bunch of those tabletop prototypes that I have, which you've seen before. So it's that kind of material, so basically it's very fragile, although there's a lot of it and it's very dense, so it's a rather solid item. But I'll go ahead and rotate this item around so you can see the back. So surprisingly, there are screw holders in this, despite its primitive look, because a lot of the newer prototypes actually have screws, which as collectors, as a collector I should say, I appreciate, because then if something goes wrong, it's much easier to open up. Because if this was just the solid skull itself with no screws, basically impossible to get inside and fix anything. On the back here, one big difference as well is there's actually a battery compartment on the back of the skull's head, as well as a spot for a toggle switch, so it says off and sensor, and there's just nothing there. Because as I said, and then there's a try-me jack right there, one of the bigger ones, like the techie step pad jacks, basically. So the reason why that's there is, like I said, there have been items produced before with the skull that talks, such as that hanging skeleton with the butler's audio. So they just use one of those skulls, so therefore there's no like switches or jacks in the head. And the produced one obviously does not have this feature. Now, one of the more interesting things about this item is the bottom of it. So I will go ahead and flip it around here, and then I'll turn it like this. To be really careful with this item since it's so heavy. But so basically right there we have a, I guess, Target barcode, and underneath that is the actual little Jimmy label with the item number. So I wish they didn't cover it up, but they did. And then, as you can see here, they have like a produced, like almost like a candy bowl or a grave raver type base, essentially a grave rubber base, and they have these 4 screws that are holding it into the prototype material bowl. And there's a red LED that cuts on whenever it's turned on, right through there, and you can see through it because of the material. So I think that's really neat how they have a red LED. Don't know what the purpose is, but I guess it just shows that it's turned on. And yeah, so that's all I really have to say about the item. And now we're going to demonstrate it, but I just want to quickly point out that this thing can eat through batteries relatively quick for some reason. I don't know the exact reasoning behind that. I'll turn the light on so you can see it better. But that's just, I guess, a flaw with this, because it is a prototype item. So sadly, I have the button hooked up and everything, but I can't just leave the batteries in there because it'll drain them. In fact, when I put batteries in that were slightly used, his lights barely lit up in his eyes. So I had to get some out of the skeleton hand piano, playing the piano, and those seemed to work fine. But since I've been talking so much, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be drained at some point in some way. So enough of me talking. We'll get into the phrases, and at the end I'll flip it over so you can see the red LED. So without further ado, we'll demonstrate it for you.
Hey, are you going to the Halloween party? I don't think so. Why not? I've got no body to go with.
Some differences with the animation. This mouth doesn't move as much, which is understandable because of the primitive material they used to actually mold it together. And with this one, it actually shuts all the way, and the mouth mechanism is better in it, because with the produced one, it stays open a little bit and it bounces, so it looks cheaper. So I do like that.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Philip. Philip who? Fill up my bag with candy. Bonehead, skull. I love it when we have these little chats. Yes, we should do it more often. Hey, are you going to the Halloween party? I don't think so. Why not? I've got no body to go with. Knock, knock. Who's there? Philip. Philip who? Fill up my bag with candy.
So that's all the phrases, and now I'll go ahead and flip it over while it's turned on so you can see the red LED.
Bonehead, skull. I love it when we have these little chats. Yes, we should do it more often.
Then it'll cut off. So yeah, once again, don't know the exact purpose for that, but I'll play it one more time.
Hey, are you going to the Halloween party? I don't think so. Why not? I've got no body to go with.
As for comparing it to the produced one, I did take some photos, so I may end up making one of those photos the thumbnail, so you guys can look in the thumbnail, or you could just message me asking for pictures, or you could just look at a video of a produced one, or your own produced one, and just note the differences. Because my produced one is in storage, because these bowls take up a lot of space. But yeah, anyways, so that's all I have to say and show you for this item. I'm not going to tell you how much I paid, but it was a lot. Thanks so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed.